And good evening. This is Thursday and it is 8 p.m., which means it is PLAR History and Geography here at WASA. Again, my name is Jonathan. I am your teacher for this course. We are at the end of week 7. Again, just a reminder, there's 2 more weeks after today's class. 2 more weeks. Okay, so again, continue to work on those assignments. Again, if you have any questions, any difficulties, send me an email, give me a call, send me a message on Facebook. Okay, so again, there's many ways you can get a hold of me if you have any difficulties or have any questions. Okay, so yes, today our learning goal are we're looking at the environment, where we're gonna continue looking at physical geography and geography half of PLAR history and geography. So today, class, our learning goals are we'll be looking at the environment, hence the title of today's class. Okay, we'll talk about the environment and the components that deals with the environment. We'll be also looking at global warming. Very important issue that links and how it impacts us nowadays and presently. So these are the 2 main goals that we're going to be looking at in terms of today's class. The environment, what that means, and the component that deals with the environment. We'll also look at global warming. We'll have a good understanding of what that is, and what it means, and how it affects us as individual, and how we can prevent and reduce and stop global warming as well. Okay, so these are our 2 main topics that we are going to cover in terms of today's class. Okay, however, before we begin these 2 topics, like as promised, we're going to go back to last class lesson. I'm going to quickly do a bit of review and go over some of the main topics that we covered last class, as we kind of rush near the end in terms of looking at Canada's ecosystem. Okay, and then again, I will quickly go over again, once again, questions on assignment 13 to make sure everyone has a good understanding. Okay, so again, just a bit of review from last class on Tuesday before we begin in terms of today's class lesson. Okay, are there any questions before we begin class? Hopefully everyone's having a wonderful evening so far. Again, at any point throughout my lessons, if you have any questions, feel free to just interrupt me and just ask them. If something doesn't make sense, let me know and I will go back and rephrase it. Hopefully it will make sense then. Okay. Alright, so last class on Tuesday, we looked at a few key topics. One, we looked at what is a functional region. We looked at the difference between weather and climate. We defined those 2 words and how they mean something completely different. We looked at trees, different types of trees and their characteristics that they have in common. And Canada's ecozone, a very big topic. I'm going to go over that again today in greater details, okay? Again, this is just a bit of review. All of these notes are uploaded onto my YouTube channel at HisGeo. Again, at any point, you can go to YouTube, type in HisGeo, search it, and find this lesson as we went over these details as well. Again, just a bit of review to refresh our memory, as it will help us in terms of our assignments. Okay, so what is a functional region? We defined it last class as something and often develop around a center or a focal point. So anything that is significant, that attracts a lot of people, can be defined as a functional region. Okay, can be a functional region. So for example, on my screen, any national park here in Canada can be defined as a functional region. So for example, Banff National Park out west in Alberta is an example of a functional region. Quebec Falls, just outside of Thunder Bay, is also known as, it can be considered as a functional region. Any major city with a lots of people, highly urban populated area, can be defined as a functional region. So any area or center or has a focal point that attracts people, where people are going there to visit or work in that particular area, can be defined as a functional region. A region that is functional, that has meaning, and that has purpose is an example of a functional region. Again, class, you will see questions about what is a functional region, hence why I put a little star beside it. Then we moved on to looking at what is the difference between weather and climate, how we define these two different terms. As you recall, I like to remember weather as short-term conditions. Okay, what it is like outside on a day-to-day basis. Okay, it could include the temperature. It could be sunny, cloudy, raining, snowing, windy. Okay, these are some of the characteristics that we use to define what is weather. So for example, if I look outside my window right now, here in Silicon, it is partly cloudy, not much wind, but it is very, very cold. It's not snowing, just fairly cold. Feeling close to probably around minus 30. Yes, very, very cold. So if you're outside, hopefully you'll bundle up. Okay, so this is an example of weather. Weather. Okay, short-term condition where it changes day to days. Okay, climate. How I like to remember climate is a long-range term pattern of weather over a decade or even centuries. It is the average weather of a particular area. I gave an example of here in northwestern Ontario. For example, here in Suco and all the community that we serve here at Wausau are example of this area or this region known as northwestern Ontario. We have a pretty similar weather climate where during this time of year it is very, very cold for a long extended period of time, and we have lots of snow. It does not describe any event or date on a particular day. So we're looking at climate, we're looking at long range. Okay, so for example, in the Arctic region or in Antarctica, we know that that particular climate is very, very cold. We know that the climate near the equator is often very, very warm. We know that the climate in a desert, for example, is very dry, sunny, not a lot of precipitation. Okay, those examples of weather. Okay, so again, you will see questions on what is the difference between weather and climate. Again, how I like to remember a short term, a long term, and how they mean something completely different. Okay. Then we moved on and looked at types of trees. Trees may sound boring, but it's in your textbook and we need to go over it. So there's two types of trees that we went over. One, coniferous trees, and two, deciduous trees. So let's look at some of these characteristics that we went over. So we note that a coniferous tree, or any tree that has cones or needles like leaves on them. So for example, a cedar tree, a pine tree, spruce tree. These are all examples of a coniferous tree. They are green all year long, hence why they are classified or known as evergreen trees. Okay, we have tons of them here, especially in the Canadian Shield region, this landform of ours. Okay, they really thrive in cold temperature. So again, any trees that has cones or spike-like, needles-like leaves are classified as coniferous tree. Okay, they can be very tall as they grow in height. Okay, these are some of the characteristics of a coniferous tree. Then we looked at tree type number 2, deciduous tree. So the difference between a coniferous tree and a deciduous tree sheds its leaf in the fall season. They often grow in areas that has 4 seasons, so summer, fall, winter, and spring. So very, very simple to remember. Any tree that shreds its leaf or leaves that fall to the ground, especially in the fall season, are known as a deciduous tree. Again, some examples that I note were a maple tree, an oak tree, a birch tree. Okay, any leaves that change color, especially in the fall season, and these leaves that fall to the ground are example of a deciduous tree. I also note that there are only a few deciduous trees remain, and because there are a lot of deforestation where we chop down a lot of trees, a lot of forests, a lot of clear cutting of area, so that we can expand urban area, town, or city in terms of its development, in terms of its growth. Okay, so it's really important that we do not eliminate all of our deciduous trees or any trees for that matter. Okay, and those are the 2 trees that we talked about last class. And finally, last class, our last learning goal for last class, which was that we talked about Canada's ecozone. Canada's ecozones. As you remember, yes, here in Canada we have tons, and I mean tons of ecozones. Okay, we have 15 land-based ecozones and 5 marine-based ecozones. So tons of ecozones. So what is an ecozone? Can anyone tell me? Does anyone remember? Without looking at on my screen and reading off that definition. Does anyone remember what an ecozone is? It's kind of a expanded definition of what is a region in a way. So if you have said natural features and mixing with human activities in a particular area, you are correct. Okay, so an ecozone, again, is like a region that has one main common characteristics that links natural features and human activities together. So now we have nature and humans coming together, and as a result, we have something known as an ecozone. Okay, an ecozone in a particular area. Again, like I mentioned, we have 15 land-based ecozones and 5 marine-based ecozones here in Canada. Okay, common characteristics could be the climate, could be vegetation, could be the population, could be a whole wide range of other common characteristics as well. Okay, so this is what an ecozone is. Natural features with human activities in a particular area combining together. Again, on my screen, a little map of Canada's ecozone. You do have this map in your textbook, so don't feel free to start coloring in because you do have this map in your textbook. Okay, so on my left-hand side, I have a land-based ecozone of Canada, and on my other map on the right-hand side is the marine base, which is anything that deals with water, ocean, sea, water related, hence why the word marine-based ecozone. Okay, Canada is a big country. Okay, from east to west, even northern Canada, we have lots of diversities. As a result, we have tons of ecozones. So again, when looking at all these ecozones, again, we're not gonna go over all of them. I'm not gonna continue to go over all of them because they're just too much and some of them overlap with one another. However, like I mentioned, this is your chance and opportunity to pick any 4, okay? Any 4 ecozones in Canada that you want to focus on. It could be all 4 marine based, all 4 land based. It does not matter, okay? Any 4. Just pick any 4 ecozone that sound interesting to you or you have interest in or you want to pick out of random. Just focus on 4. Okay, there are just too many. Okay, I don't expect everyone to know all the details and characteristics of each ecozone because that's just too much. That is too much. Because some of them do overlap. So again, just pick any 4. It does not matter which 4, but just pick 4. Once you have your 4, focus on these 5 areas. Okay, its name. Okay, what is the name of that ecozone? Where is it located? Okay, in terms of the provinces, the Climate, what's the weather like or the climate like in that particular ecozone? Types of animals, what types of animals live in that ecozone? And human interference, how have human impacted that ecozone? It could be a positive way or it could be a negative way. Okay, again, all of these information about all these ecozones are in your textbook. Okay, I did provide a link too with more additional information if you need more information. Okay. So I'm not going to spend time right now, class, and go over all the ecozones because we did them last class. As a result, right now, we're going to take some time. Well, first of all, I'm going to show you all the illustrations of Canada's ecozone. Again, note the diversity, especially on my screen if you have access to the Bridget software. Note all the different types of animals in each ecozone. Note the landscape, where some have mountains and some don't. Okay, note the vegetation. Some are flat, some are has rocks and hills. Again, note all the different types of animals. Okay, note the different types of weather that's impacted around those particular ecozones as well. Okay, lots and lots of diversity. Even when we move to the marine base, you can note that some look pretty similar and some are completely different. Okay, again, note all the different animals, note what's happening in tourism, pollution, human interference, overfishing, where we fish a lot in a particular area and we wipe out all the fish population. That's an impact. Okay, so lots. Okay, I want everyone to turn your attention to, once again, assignment 13. I'm going to quickly run through these questions so that everyone have a good understanding. Again, we kind of rushed through these questions last class, so I want to take some time right now just to relax, go over these questions, make sure everything makes sense before we move on with today's lesson. Okay, so assignment 13 out of 23 marks. Okay, 23 marks. Question number 1, what is a functional region? Again, define it, tell me what it is. Okay. Question number 2, pretty much explain what is meant by the term weather and the term climate. So you're going to define what is weather and what is climate, and tell me why these two terms mean something different. Okay, something different. Okay, so there's kind of 3 parts to that question, hence why it's out of 3 marks. Then question 4 talks about our trees. What are the characteristics of a coniferous tree? What are the characteristics of a deciduous tree? Question 5 asks, what is an ecozone? Again, lots of defined terminology. What are the characteristics? Again, lots of definitions. Again, all these answers are in your textbook, and especially if you have been paying attention to our lessons, highlighting key notes or taking notes or highlighting your textbook, there shouldn't be any difficulties. Okay, class, I want everyone to focus on question number 6 on assignment 13, this chart. I'm going to give the class an example right now so that there's no confusion. We're going to do an example together on the screen. Okay, so you will see this chart. Basically, again, you're going to focus on any 4 ecozone that you want. Any 4, okay? There will be 3 marks for each, total of 12 marks. So again, we're going to talk about the ecozone and its name. For example, if I was to choose the Boreal Plains, feel free to use jot notes for this chart. Jot notes will be acceptable. I know it's not much space provided, so if you use jot notes, that's okay. But everything else needs to be in full, complete sentences. Okay, so I've got my location, the Boreal Plains, and it asks the location. So we know that the world plain is located in Alberta, parts of Saskatchewan, parts of Manitoba. Okay, boom, done. Then we move on to the next column. Talks about landforms. Okay, what kind of landforms on this are in this ecozone? So we know that the both plains has obviously plains, where it's nice and flat, and it has valleys. Again, all these informations are in your textbook. Then we move on to the next column, climate. So you can say that there's cold winter. For example, I can reach down to minus 17 degrees. Summertime is pretty warm. So summer, you say it's pretty warm, but not hot and humid. Okay, something like this is on the line is what I'm looking for. Again, more details would be great too. Then we move to the next column where we're looking at animals. What kind of animals live in this particular ecosystem? So it can be like there's wolves. Okay, there's cranes, bears, black bears, lynx, a muskrat. Okay, let's jot down some examples of types of animals that live in this ecosystem. The textbook does a great job of listing tons and tons of different types of species and animals. Okay, and we move on to the last column where it talks about human interference. When we're dealing with human interference, how have we as individual, as human, impacted that particular ecosystem? It could be in a positive manner, or it could be in a negative manner. Okay, so for the world's plains, there's logging, there's mining, there's agriculture, lots of falling due to the plains. Okay, could be just pollution, could be tourism, could be outdoor activities. Okay, depends on that particular ecosystem. Something on this particular guideline is what I'm looking for in terms of when filling out this chart. Again, class, pick just 4 ecozone. Don't do all of them. Okay, a question just asked for 4, so please just pick any 4. Okay, so pick any 4, either marine-based or land-based ecozone. Okay. Are there any questions, class? Hopefully that clears up any confusion in regards to any questions that you may have in terms of last class and assignment 13. Okay, hope that all makes sense. Again, are there any questions before we move along in terms of today's class? Okay, excellent. Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, so now we're gonna switch gears and continue looking at today's class in terms of today's class learning goal. So now we're looking at the environment and global warming. Again, if you're following along in your textbook, I'm on page 57 in your textbook. Page 57. Page 57. Okay, we'll see how far we can get in terms of this class lesson. If we don't finish, that's okay. We'll continue off with it next class. And then at the end of today's class, if we do finish, we'll go over assignments 14. Okay, and go over those questions. Okay? Alright, let's move along in terms of today's lesson. The environments. The environment. There are 4 components of the environment. Okay, one, the atmosphere, which is the air around us, the air that we breathe. Okay, that is the atmosphere. This is the part of the environment. Two, the hydrosphere, which is the water. So any oceans, lakes, streams that we have on our beautiful planets are known as the hydrosphere. Note that there is more water than land on our planet Earth. Okay, so the hydrosphere is a component of the environment. Three, the lithosphere. The lithosphere, which is pretty much the Earth's crust or any land that we have on our planet in terms of the environment. And lastly, number four, we have the biosphere. Plants, animals, people. In other words, any living organism that we have on our planet. These are the four components of the environment. So when we're talking about the environments, we're talking about these four components. Okay. Very, very important, very, very significant. Okay. I'll go through the four components again of the environment. Again, number one, the atmosphere, which is the air that we breathe and around us. The hydrosphere, two, which is the water that we have on our planet. Lakes, oceans, rivers, you name it. Three, lithosphere, which is the land, the Earth's crust. And lastly, number four, the biosphere. Could be living plants, trees, types of animals, and people. Anything that is living is considered a biosphere. These spheres are closely connected together. Okay, so keep that in mind. So when we're talking about the environment, we're talking about all four components and how they are linked closely together. For example, many birds. Snowbirds is a type of animal, and it is considered a biosphere. So for example, many birds, bracket, biosphere, fly through the air, which is the atmosphere. See how they relate to one another? A bird, which is an animal, and it flies in the atmosphere, which is the air that we breathe. While water, which is the hydrosphere, often flows through the soil, which is the lithosphere. Again, see how those two are closely related to one another. We got water, often flows through the soil, which is the lithosphere. Okay? In fact, the spheres are so closely connected that a change in one sphere often results in a change in one or more sphere. Okay, so again, since they're so closely connected, if something happens in one sphere, it can cause problems. It can cause problems in other spheres or components as well. Such change that take place within an ecozones are referred to as an event. So any changes that we have that deals with the environment is known as an event. Events can occur naturally, such as an earthquake or a hurricane or any other natural phenomenon that we may have. Can be caused by humans, such as an oil spill or air pollution. An event can cause change to occur in one or more of the spheres, and or an event that can be effect of a change in one or more Earth's four spheres. This two-way cause and effect relationship between an event and a sphere is called an interaction. Interactions also occur among the spheres. For example, a change in the atmosphere can cause change in the hydrosphere, or vice versa. Okay, so please note the four components of the environment and how they are linked closely together. And if something happens in one sphere or one component, will most likely affect another component in another sphere. Okay? Questions about the components of the environments? Okay, there are four, and you will need to know all four. Okay? Alright, moving on to the next slide. Move on to the next slide. How do people impact the atmosphere? The atmosphere. If you remember from the last slide, the atmosphere is the air. In other words, how do people impact the air that we breathe? Okay, how do people impact the atmosphere? Again, which is a component of their environment. So, for example, carbon dioxide is released, which results in burning fossil fuel. Okay, when carbon dioxide or burning fossil fuel releases gases that are trapped in the atmosphere, which causes our Earth, our planet, to warm up, and as a result, this sequence of events leads to global warming. Okay, global warming. Humans have an impact on the atmosphere when carbon dioxide is released from many sources, such as burning fossil fuel for energy and the operation of automobiles. So yes, hands up nice and high if you have a car. I do. And if you drive that car, you are burning fossil fuel, you're creating carbon dioxide, and as you drive, it releases these gas, which in other words known as pollution, which gets trapped in our atmosphere, which causes our Earth, our planet to warm up, which again leads to this natural phenomenon of global warming. The gases get trapped in heat produced by the sun. So again, the sun is not a factor. Causes the Earth to warm up more than usual. Again, this is known as global warming. And global warming can have a drastic effect on our environments. Okay. Again, this is a major impact that is affecting us here nowadays. Okay, and as a result, we need to be conscious, need to realize our actions, and do what we can to reduce global warming. One way to reduce global warming is drive less. Okay, hence why walking or taking public transit or carpooling or riding your bike, kicking out your rollerblades or your scooter are methods that can help reduce the global warming and help our planets and our atmosphere. Okay? So again, this is how we are impacting the atmosphere right now here in modern society. Okay? This is taking place everywhere in northern communities, in populated urban cities. They're all affected, and we all play a key role in terms of global warming. Okay? Questions about that? Questions about that? We'll get to more about global warming in a sec, in the next couple of slides as well. In your textbook, there is a little article on page 57 that talks about our neighbor, United States. and President George Bush from way back in the day, back in the early 2000. Okay, but we're going to talk about something called the Kyoto Protocol. And in this article in your textbook on page 57, it deals with the Kyoto Protocol. Okay, I'll get to more of that in a second. I'm not gonna read the article to the class because the class can just read that on your own time. Again, please make sure you do read the article. There will be questions that deals and relate to the article. Okay, so any articles in your textbook you must read. It's important. Don't just leave it out. Okay. The Kyoto Protocol started late 1990s, 1997. I have it on my slide, where countries such as Canada and other nations around the world gather together and they start to talk, start to have a discussion. This discussion deals with this natural phenomenon or this crisis that we have in known as, yes, you know it, global warming. So Canada, our country of ours, and other countries gather in Japan, in Kyoto, a city in Japan, and we start to talk and start to discuss global warming. Yes, it's a problem. We know it's a problem. This problem is increasing. As a result, how do we fix this problem? That was the main goal of this gathering. And as a result, from this Kyoto Protocol meeting, they established something called the Kyoto Protocol. This protocol, this agreement. So the goal of the Kyoto Protocol is mandatory cuts of greenhouse gases emissions and enforces regulations on countries and commit to a goal of having cleaner air. Okay, I'll say it again. Kyoto Protocol, the main goal that came out of this meeting was to have mandatory cuts on greenhouse gases emission, where we are now forcing rules and regulations on how to commit to cleaner air that we have. The Kyoto Protocol is an international agreement setting targets for industrialized countries, such as Canada, to cut their greenhouse gas emissions. These gases are considered at least partly responsible for global warming and the rise of global temperature, which may have catastrophic consequences of life on Earth. So again, if we don't fix this problem, there will be catastrophic consequences for life on Earth as a result of the rise in temperature that deals with global warming. Canada agreed to this agreement, this Kyoto Protocol. However, countries such as our neighbor, the United States, did not agree to sign this agreement. Some did, and some didn't. The United States, and I believe Australia didn't sign this agreement as well. This is significant because especially if you read this article, it outlines it's hard to justify if the most populated or one of the most populated countries, the United States, did not sign this agreement. It is not a good example where if the United States are not signing this agreement, then why should other countries agree and follow along? Okay, it's hard to join if a country such as the United States, a country that has lots of people, who has a huge effect on global warming, who did not sign this agreement. Again, Kyoto Protocol Its goal was to have industrialized countries have committed to cut their combined emissions by 5%. By 5% by 2008 and 2012. That was the goal. Okay, that was the goal. To reduce their greenhouse gas emission by 5%. Okay, by 5%. If it was in 1990. So starting in 1990, okay, the goal was to reduce its greenhouse gas emission by 5%, and then reach that goal and that target by 2008 to 2012, which is now over. As a result, most countries, okay, most countries did reduce their greenhouse gases by 30%. So as a result, we not really reach our goal, but we did help and reduce. Okay. Again, in your article, it talks more about why the United States did not agree to this agreement. Okay. So some key points from the article was Mr. Bush, the prime minister during that time period, stated that implementing will have a damaging effect on the United States economy. Says that backs emissions reduction through voluntary actions and new energy technologies, how they are reducing their greenhouse gas emissions through voluntary action and new energy technologies. Okay. So, in the end, is the Kyoto Protocol actually working? Maybe. Some say it is, some say it don't. Experts predict that the Kyoto Protocol that was created is just a start. It's just scratching the surface. We have a much bigger problems in terms of global warming that we need to deal with. Okay? So are there any questions about the Kyoto Protocol? The Kyoto Protocol? I believe there will be questions that deals with like, why did the United States not join for some reason? Okay. Questions before we move on? So I don't think we're gonna finish off our lesson today, which is okay. Don't panic, which is okay. We will finish this lesson off next week. Okay, next week. But let's do one more slide. Let's do one more slide. Yeah, let's do one more slide. Maybe two more slides. We'll see. We'll see. So you flip over to your next page in your textbook. It deals all with global warming. Where is it actually happening? What are the causes? Is it happening? What are examples of global warming or climate change for that matter? Okay. On my next few slides, I kind of summarize all these points. All these points. Okay. But we'll start off. How does climate or climate change affect us? We know that yes, there is scientific data out there that states that the temperature of our Earth is increasing more rapidly than before. Again, some people don't believe that. Some people do. Okay, but there's lots of data out there that suggests that yes, our Earth is increasing in terms of its temperature more rapidly than before. As a result, this leads to climate change. Climate change and how it affects us. So on the slide I have right now, how does climate change affect us? How does climate change affect us? Any thoughts? Does anyone know? Any thoughts on how climate change can affect us? Well, on my slide, Oh yes, if you said food, you're correct. Climate change does impact food. So how climate change affects us is that if the temperature of Earth is continuing to grow, it will impact us as on what we can grow. We will have longer growing season, which means that we can grow more food, we can grow more plants, crops, agriculture, vegetation. Okay, some countries can who have may not experience crop growth before now can due to the increase of climate change. Okay, which impacts the food that we eat. Okay, we may have more unique fruits and vegetables at different types of season now as a result of climate change. Clothing. It impacts the clothing that we wear too. Okay, if it's increasing temperature, which means it's often warmer throughout the year, it impacts what we wear. We may be rocking our flip-flops more often instead of having our heavy-duty boots. Okay, we can be wearing more t-shirts and shorts instead of hoodies and snow pants or heavy winter jackets. Okay, this impacts us. Okay, the clothing types that we buy. Okay, for example, if I know that it's not gonna get that much, sorry, if I know that it's not gonna get that cold throughout the year in terms of winter, why would I invest in a big heavy winter jacket? Okay, again, that impacts us as well. Types of shelter that we live and build in. Okay, you may need to use the AC more, the air condition. Okay, because it's too hot. It's too hot. Okay, I would be eating more ice cream to cool off. I would not be needing my portable heater no more if it's increasing in temperature. Okay, again, these are all some factors. Okay, not just all, but some that are listed. There are tons more. Okay, if you have any, let me know and we can add to our list. Okay, but again, these are just some examples that impacts us in terms of climate change. Okay, again, human actions. Okay, our actions are causing climate to change more quickly than ever before. Ever before. Okay, climate human actions are causing climate change to happen more quickly than ever before. Okay, so with that being said, class, in terms of global warming and climate change, let's write that. Climate change and global warming. Yeah, this is our learning goal and our theme for as we progress. Climate change and global warming. So there are factors, okay, pros and cons of climate change and global warming. There are positive effects and there are negative effects, okay? Okay, not just all bad things will happen as a result of increasing temperature on our planet. Okay, there are good things, there are bad things. What are they? Well, you will just have to wait till next week. As I will not tell you today, I will tell you next week. Okay? So think about that. I'm gonna leave off right that for today. Okay, we're gonna continue off with this lesson next week. Where we're gonna talk about global warming and climate change. But to end things, I'm gonna get to maybe a few other questions on your next assignment. Okay, we'll start just a few of the questions. Again, we will continue off with this lesson next week on Tuesday. But however, you can start assignment 14, where out of 15 marks, by answering question number 1. Question number 1 asks, name and describe the 4 components of the environment. Okay, Name and describe 4 of the components of the environment. So what are they? And then tell me what they are. For example, if you wrote down hydrosphere, hint, hint, that's one component. What is the hydrosphere? I don't know what the hydrosphere is. Okay, describe it. Oh, the hydrosphere is the water. Water on our planet. Okay. Then you could say another component is the atmosphere. I don't know what the atmosphere is. Okay, you could jot down atmosphere, but again, describe it. The atmosphere is the air that we breathe, for example. Okay, so name the 4. Okay, not just 1 or 2, but name 4. There are 4 components of the environment. Name them and describe them. Okay, again, nothing new here, class. I'm not asking anyone to write me War and Peace or a massive essay. Again, you're just, all I'm asking is that you answer the question that's being asked. You're writing full, complete sentences with lots of details. Don't just copy word for word or copy the whole paragraph in your textbook, because that does not demonstrate me anything. Okay? Question number 2. What does global warming mean? And why should we be concerned about its effect on the Earth? You can kind of answer that question, but you can answer that question more details when we finish this lesson. What does global warming mean? I think everyone should have a good understanding of what that fancy word means. Talked lots about today. And why should we be concerned? Why should we be concerned? Okay. I think you can answer part of that today and parts of it next week as well. Let's see what else you can answer. Okay, question number 3. Question number 3. You can answer question number 3 right now, where it says, name the agreements, hint, hint, that have been drafted by international community to address global warming situation, and what it is designed to accomplish. What is holding them back from enforcing it? Okay, this deals with the article. Okay, the article. On page 57 in your textbook. Okay, especially if you read that article in your textbook, it will significantly help you answer this question. Okay, and I believe that's all the questions that you can answer now. Some of the questions you will answer off or finish off the assignment when we finish off this lesson next week. Okay. Are there any questions right now in terms of anything that we begin that we have talked about? It could be from last class on Tuesday, could be today's class. Okay, so next week we're going to finish off this lesson. We're going to start off by looking at the pros and cons, the positive, the negative of climate change. Okay, what the good things and the bad things about climate change. Okay, think about it. Okay, think about it. We'll take it up next week on Tuesday. Okay, and are there any questions before we call it a night? Again, I want to thank everyone for participating. You have been great listener. Okay, which is excellent. Again, at any points, if you have any difficulties with your assignments, any assignments for that matter, let me know. I'm here to help. Okay, so again, I do highly encourage everyone to continue to work on this assignments. Please submit them to me as soon as you can. That way I can mark it and update your marks as well. Okay. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to let the class go. Again, thank you so much for listening and participating here at WASA with me, Jonathan, your teacher for PLAR History and Geography. I will see everyone next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central Time. Have a good night.